Is old age truly the peaceful time of rest we've been promised? Or is it filled with unexpected lessons no one warned us about? We all grow up believing that after a lifetime of hard work, we'll finally get to relax, surrounded by love and care. But what if reality doesn't match that expectation? What if aging comes with struggles we never anticipated? At 82 years old, I made a decision that I thought was the best for me. I believed I was securing my future, ensuring my comfort, and making life easier for my family. But now, looking back, I realize I was wrong. I want to share my experience with you, not to scare you, but to prepare you. Because there are things about nursing homes that no one talks about, and if you or someone you love is facing this decision, you need to hear the truth. Stay until the end, because I'll reveal the biggest lesson I learned, a reality most people only understand when it's too late. My name is Manuel. After a lifetime of work, raising a family and learning from my mistakes, I now see things differently. And today I want to give you a perspective that could change everything. This video isn't about blaming or pointing fingers. It's about uncovering what really happens, the good and the bad, so you can make the right choice for yourself or your loved ones. What you'll learn may surprise you, especially the final truth which few dare to say aloud. Let's start. When we think about aging, we often picture a slower, quieter life, one where we finally get to rest. But what many people don't realize is that one of the hardest parts of growing old isn't just physical decline. It's losing control over your own life. At first, it might seem like small changes. Maybe your family insists you stop driving because it's too risky. Maybe they start managing your medications for you. These things might even feel like help at first. But then, one day, you wake up and realize you don't get to make decisions for yourself anymore. This hit me hardest when I moved into the nursing home. Simple things, like taking a short walk outside or choosing what time to eat, was suddenly no longer my choice. I remember one afternoon, I felt restless and wanted to go for a walk. I had always enjoyed the fresh air, the feeling of the sun on my skin. But when I asked, I was told, "Not right now, we don't have staff available to supervise you." Supervise me? For decades, I lived independently, raised a family, made important decisions, and now I had to ask permission just to take a walk. That moment hit me like a brick. It wasn't about safety. It was about losing agency over my own life. And I'm not the only one. I've spoken to many others in the same situation, and the frustration is universal. When you enter a facility, your schedule is no longer your own. You wake up when they tell you to. You eat what they serve. You bathe when it's convenient for them. It's not intentional cruelty. It's just the reality of these places. They operate on efficiency, not individuality. Over time, this loss of independence wears you down. It chips away at your self-esteem and your sense of identity. Imagine this. You've spent your whole life making your own choices, big and small. Now suddenly everything is decided for you, even things you wouldn't expect, like what clothes are easiest for the staff to help you put on, rather than what you actually want to wear. And the worst part? The more dependent you seem, the less people listen to you. Your family, caregivers, even doctors start making assumptions. They stop asking what you want. They start talking about you instead of to you. I've seen proud, strong individuals reduced to feeling like children again, constantly told what's best for them, rarely asked what they actually prefer. For me, the hardest part of this transition was the psychological impact. It wasn't just about missing my freedom. It was about feeling like I was losing myself. So if you or a loved one are considering this path, be prepared for this shift. It's not just about moving into a new place. It's about adjusting to a life where your choices are limited. Does this mean nursing homes are all bad? No. But this is a reality few people talk about before making the decision. And the worst part? This is just the beginning. Because once you're inside, you start to realize that the treatment you receive isn't always what you expect. When you move into a nursing home, you expect to be taken care of. You assume the staff will be kind, attentive, and patient. After all, their job is to help the elderly live comfortably, right? The truth is, not all caregivers are the same. Some are incredible, compassionate, dedicated, and truly invested in the well-being of the residents. But others, they see it as just a job, a routine, something they do for a paycheck, not because they care. At first, I didn't notice it. The nurses smiled, the assistants seemed friendly, but over time I saw the cracks. One day I watched as an elderly woman struggled to get up from her chair. She called for help, but no one came. She wasn't being ignored on purpose, the staff was simply overwhelmed. There weren't enough hands to assist everyone quickly. And then there are those who shouldn't be in this profession at all. I remember a man named Arthur. He was quiet, polite, and never caused trouble. But one night I heard a nurse snap at him. "You're always complaining. Just eat your food and stop being difficult." Difficult. Arthur was just asking for his medication, which had been forgotten. That's when I realized something important. In an institution, you are just one of many. Not everyone is mistreated, but the reality is that the system isn't built for individual care. Staff members are often overworked. They don't always have time for long conversations or personal attention. And the psychological impact of this? It's profound. Many elderly residents start to feel like burdens even when they're not treated badly. When you're just another name on a schedule, it's easy to feel invisible. Psychologists call this institutional detachment, a kind of emotional distance that forms when care becomes routine rather than personal. It's not always intentional, but it happens, and it hurts. One evening, I overheard a new resident crying. She had just arrived and was overwhelmed. Instead of comforting her, a staff member sighed and said, "You'll get used to it. You'll get used to it." I thought about those words all night, because no one should have to get used to feeling lonely, unheard, or unimportant. If you're considering a nursing home, pay attention to the staff. Watch how they interact with residents. Look for signs of true care, not just efficiency, but empathy. Because in a place like this, the way you're treated shapes everything. And if you think family visits will make up for it, think again. Because what most people don't realize is that family bonds weaken faster than you expect. One of the biggest myths about nursing homes is that moving into one will bring more family visits, not fewer. I believed it too. I thought that being in a nursing home would make it easier for my family to see me. They wouldn't have to worry about taking care of me, so they'd have more time to simply visit and enjoy my company. But the reality was different. At first, the visits were frequent. My children came every weekend. My grandchildren stopped by with smiles and stories from school. It felt like I was still connected, still part of their lives. Then, slowly, things started to change. One weekend, my daughter called to say she had a last-minute work project. She'd come next week instead. The following week, my grandson had a soccer game. They'd visit the next weekend. And then the excuses kept coming. It wasn't that they stopped loving me. Life just got in the way. At home, they had to check on me, help with groceries, and ensure I was okay. But once I moved into the nursing home, they didn't have those responsibilities anymore. And without that reason to see me, the visits became less of a priority. I wasn't alone in this. Many residents told me the same thing. At first, they come all the time. Then life moves on. And the loneliness, it creeps in faster than you'd think. There were days when I sat by the window, watching cars pull into the parking lot, hoping one of them would bring someone I knew. Sometimes they did, but often they didn't. There's a certain pain in waiting for people who never come, and even when family does visit, something feels different. It's hard to explain, but you start feeling less like a parent or grandparent and more like an obligation, a stop on their to-do list. Conversations change. Instead of asking about your life, they update you on theirs. Instead of staying for hours, they glance at the clock. And worst of all, you start to expect less from them because disappointment hurts too much. I'm not saying family stops caring. I know my children love me, but when you're not part of daily life, you slowly become a memory instead of a presence. So if you or a loved one is considering this move, be prepared. Because the idea that you'll see your family more often, it's one of the biggest lies we tell ourselves. And the worst part, loneliness isn't the only danger. Because despite the promises, these places aren't always as safe as they claim. One of the biggest selling points of a nursing home is safety. Families are told their loved ones will receive proper care, medical attention, and supervision. After all, that's why many people choose these facilities in the first place, to ensure a secure environment. But the truth? It's not always as safe as they claim. I learned this the hard way. One evening, I heard a loud crash from down the hall. A resident had fallen while trying to get to the bathroom alone. He had pressed the emergency button minutes ago, but no one had come. By the time help arrived, he was on the floor in pain, shaken and afraid. The staff apologized, but the reality was simple. There weren't enough caregivers to respond quickly. And that wasn't an isolated incident. Another time, a woman I knew, sweet, kind, always smiling, was given the wrong medication. It wasn't intentional, Just a mistake in a long list of medications that needed to be distributed. But that mistake made her sick. These aren't just rare accidents. They happen more often than you'd think, because many nursing homes operate like businesses first and care facilities second. Cutting costs often means cutting corners, and when money becomes the priority, residents suffer. Some facilities don't have enough staff for the number of residents they house. Others rush medical care, leading to mistakes. And some even ignore complaints because admitting problems would hurt their reputation. I once spoke to a nurse who told me, "We try our best, but we're overworked. There just aren't enough of us to give proper attention to everyone." And that's the problem. Even the best caregivers can't do their job properly if they're stretched too thin. Beyond medical mistakes, there are also security concerns. I met a man who had wandered outside unnoticed because the doors weren't locked properly. Another resident had her belongings stolen, personal things, sentimental things, and no one knew who took them. When families visit, they often see the surface. Clean hallways, friendly greetings, a structured environment. But they don't see what happens at night, during understaffed shifts or in moments when no one is watching. And here's the harshest truth. Even when accidents happen, they're often downplayed. Facilities don't want bad press. They don't want worried families questioning their services. So when mistakes occur, they're minimized, and the elderly, many of whom already feel powerless, are left to deal with the consequences. So if you're thinking about a nursing home, ask the real questions. How many caregivers are there per resident? What's the protocol for emergencies? How often do they review medication accuracy? Because assumptions can be dangerous. And while safety is one concern, the quality of life inside these places is another story altogether. Because when it comes to daily living, one thing affects residents more than they realize: the food and the environment. When people imagine life in a nursing home, they often think of clean spaces, well-balanced meals, and a comfortable routine. After all, these facilities are designed to provide care and stability, right? But what many don't realize is that the food and environment play a much bigger role in well-being than they think. Let's start with the food. Before moving in, I pictured warm, home-cooked meals, nutritious dishes tailored to my needs. But the reality? Mass-produced, repetitive meals that felt more like hospital food than home cooking. Breakfast was always the same. Toast, eggs, coffee, lunch and dinner, overcooked vegetables, processed meats, and bland, uninspiring dishes. It wasn't just me. Everyone noticed it. One resident used to joke, "I ate better during the Great Depression than I do here." It made us laugh, but deep down, we all knew it wasn't really funny. For many elderly people, food is one of the last pleasures in life, a source of comfort, tradition, and joy. But in nursing homes, it often becomes just another routine. And when you're forced to eat meals that don't satisfy you, it affects more than just your stomach. It impacts your mood, your energy, even your will to eat at all. I watched residents lose weight, not because they were sick, but because they had no appetite for the food they were given. And when meals lack variety or flavor, they don't just feel unsatisfying, they feel depressing. But food is only part of the problem. The environment matters just as much. At first glance, everything seems fine. The walls are clean, the floors polished, the rooms organized. But after living there for a while, you start to notice something deeper: the emptiness. Nursing homes can feel cold, sterile, and lifeless, not because they're dirty, but because they lack personality. Most rooms look the same. The hallways feel clinical. The common areas designed to be social spaces often feel forced and artificial. It's not home. I remember sitting in my room, missing the little things I once took for granted. The smell of fresh coffee brewing in my kitchen, the sound of my old radio playing my favorite songs, the comfort of my own armchair. Here, everything felt temporary, like a place I was passing through rather than somewhere I truly belonged. And that feeling, it wears on you. Because as much as a facility can provide basic care, it can't replace the feeling of being home. Some residents try to decorate their rooms, adding personal touches, family photos, small furniture, little reminders of their past life. But no matter how much they tried, it never quite felt the same. And over time, this affects your mental and emotional health. Because when you're eating food that doesn't satisfy you and living in a place that doesn't feel like home, you start to feel like just another person in the system, rather than an individual with a life full of memories and meaning. And the hardest part? Nothing replaces home. Even with all the promises of care and comfort, it never truly feels like your own space. And that's when you start realizing something even more painful. The cost of this lifestyle is much higher than you expected. No matter how well a nursing home is designed, it never truly replaces home. At first, I tried to convince myself otherwise. I told myself it was just a new phase of life, something I would eventually get used to. But no matter how much time passed, something always felt missing. It's the little things that make a house a home. The familiar scent of your living room, the way sunlight hits your favorite chair in the afternoon, the sound of the wind against your windows at night. These small comforts, they don't exist in a facility. Sure, I had my own room. I brought photos, a blanket, even a few personal items, but it wasn't the same. It felt temporary, impersonal, like a hotel room I was never meant to leave, and I wasn't alone in feeling this way. I spoke to other residents who felt the same ache for home. One woman, who had lived in the same house for over 50 years, told me, "I wake up every morning expecting to be in my old bedroom, and every morning I remember that I'm here instead." That feeling, it never fully goes away. And it's not just about the physical space, it's about the loss of autonomy. At home, I could decide when to wake up, when to cook, when to sit outside and enjoy the fresh air. Here, everything was scheduled. Wake-up times, meals, even when the lights were turned off at night. I used to love gardening. It was my way of staying active, feeling connected to something living. But in the nursing home, there was no garden for me to tend, just a neatly trimmed lawn maintained by someone else. These might seem like small things, but they add up. Over time, they create a deep sense of loss. And the worst part, even if you wanted to go back home, it's not always possible. Many of us were here because we needed help that family members couldn't always provide. Some had sold their homes to afford the cost of care. Others simply didn't have the physical ability to live alone anymore, so we stayed, and we tried to adjust. But no matter how much we told ourselves we were settling in, there was always that feeling, the quiet longing for the place we once called home. And over time, that longing turns into a deeper realization. For all the sacrifices we made to be here, the cost of this life is far greater than we ever expected, not just emotionally, but financially. Because what most people don't realize is that nursing home expenses can be much higher than anticipated. And for many families, it becomes an overwhelming financial burden. When people think about nursing homes, they often focus on the care, the environment, and the routine. But one thing that isn't talked about enough, the cost. I always knew that living in a nursing home wouldn't be cheap, but I assumed it would be manageable. After all, I had worked hard my entire life, saved money, and planned for retirement. But what I didn't realize was just how quickly the costs add up. At first, I was given a base price. It seemed expensive, but reasonable, covering a private room, meals, and basic medical care. But then came the extra fees. Need assistance getting dressed in the morning? That's an additional charge. Special dietary requirements? That costs more. Want access to physical therapy? Extra fee. Even small things, like help with laundry or getting someone to accompany you to an appointment, came at a price. Before I knew it, the monthly cost was far higher than expected. And I wasn't the only one struggling with this reality. Many residents had been forced to sell their homes to cover their expenses. Others burned through their life savings in just a few years. I met a man who had planned carefully for retirement, only to realize that his money wouldn't last as long as he thought. "I thought I was prepared," he told me. "Now I don't know what happens next." And for those who relied on family support, the burden was often too much to bear. I saw families drained financially, struggling to keep up with payments. Some had to make difficult choices, cutting back on their own expenses just to afford care for their loved ones. And the worst part? Even with these high costs, the quality of care wasn't always guaranteed. Some nursing homes charge premium rates, but still operate with understaffing, inadequate medical attention, and limited resources. And once you're in, it's hard to leave. Many contracts are complicated, making it difficult to transfer to a different facility without losing money. Others require long-term commitments that lock families into paying even when circumstances change. So what does this mean for those considering a nursing home? Plan beyond the base price. Ask about hidden fees, additional services, and long-term financial commitments, because what seems affordable at first can quickly become overwhelming. And the harsh truth? Even if you can afford it, the lifestyle you're paying for might not be as fulfilling as you expect. Because while nursing homes offer activities to keep residents engaged, not all of them are as meaningful as they seem. And for many, the daily routine starts to feel repetitive, uninspiring, and empty. When I first moved into the nursing home, I was told there were plenty of activities to keep residents engaged. Games, social events, exercise sessions, even arts and crafts. At first I thought, that doesn't sound so bad. After all, staying active is important, and having things to do could make the transition easier. But what I quickly realized was that many of these activities weren't as fulfilling as they seemed. Most of them felt generic, repetitive, and designed more to pass the time than to bring real joy. Take bingo, for example. It was scheduled 3 times a week. I played at first just to be social, but after a while it became predictable, uninspiring. The same people, the same numbers being called, the same forced enthusiasm. Then there were exercise classes, low-impact movements that felt more like something you do in a waiting room than a real workout. Nothing personal, nothing tailored to individual needs. Just a group of people waving their arms for 20 minutes before being led back to their rooms. I remember one resident, Mr. Thompson, who used to love reading the newspaper every morning at his favorite coffee shop. He looked forward to it for years, his small ritual of peace. But here the newspaper was available, but the experience was gone. No fresh coffee, no quiet corner, no familiar barista greeting him by name. He tried reading in the common area, but it wasn't the same. One day he sighed and said, "I miss feeling like a real person." And that's what many people don't understand. It's not just about having activities, it's about having ones that actually matter to the individual. Many of us had hobbies, passions, interests before coming here, but instead of tailoring activities to what people truly enjoy, most nursing homes offer a one-size-fits-all schedule. A few people might enjoy it, but for many, it feels empty. Over time, this lack of meaningful engagement starts to take a toll. People stop attending activities. They stay in their rooms more. They lose interest in things that once made them happy. And when that happens, depression sets in. Because when you don't feel mentally stimulated, when your days start to blend into each other with nothing exciting or personal to look forward to, it becomes harder to feel alive. So if you or a loved one is considering a nursing home, ask about more than just the activity list. Ask if they actually take the time to learn about what residents love. Ask if they offer personalized activities, because keeping someone occupied isn't the same as keeping them fulfilled. And the hardest part? Even when you do find moments of joy, they can be short-lived. Because in a place like this where so many people come and go, saying goodbye becomes a painful part of life. One of the unexpected realities of living in a nursing home is that friendships become everything. At first I thought I'd feel isolated, but then I met people who were going through the same thing as me. We shared stories, laughed about the past, and found comfort in each other. Over time, these people became more than just friends, they became family. There was Margaret, who reminded me of my sister, always quick with a joke and full of warmth. There was Henry, a former teacher who loved discussing history and made me feel like I was back in a classroom. And then there was Alice, who had a quiet strength that I admired. We leaned on each other. We celebrated birthdays together, comforted each other on difficult days, and found ways to make this place feel a little more like home. But what I didn't realize, what no one told me, was how often I'd have to say goodbye. In a nursing home, people come and go. Some leave because their families decide to bring them home. Others are moved to different facilities. And then, there are those who leave in the most permanent way possible. The first time it happened, I wasn't prepared. One morning, I went to breakfast and noticed an empty seat where Margaret used to sit. I asked about her, and a staff member simply said, "She passed last night." Just like that. No warning, no time to say goodbye. She was just gone. It happened again and again. Henry, my history-loving friend, didn't come to dinner one evening. He had a stroke in his sleep. Alice, who I thought was in good health, was suddenly taken to the hospital and never returned. I stopped counting after a while. It never got easier. In the outside world, losing a friend is rare. Here, it's part of life. And the hardest part isn't just the loss, it's that you're expected to move on quickly. New residents arrive, filling the empty rooms, sitting in the same spots at meals. Life goes on, and yet, you never forget the ones who are missing. I started to wonder, how many goodbyes can a person take before they stop letting people in? Some residents avoid making close friends because they know how painful it is to lose them. Others, like me, choose to hold on to every friendship, even knowing it will eventually end, because in a place where family visits become rare and your old life feels far away, these friendships are what keep you going. But the reality is harsh. Nothing here is permanent. You form bonds, but you also learn that loss is inevitable. And if I could go back in time, I'd tell myself one thing: treasure the people while they're here, because tomorrow isn't guaranteed. And that's why, if you or a loved one is considering a nursing home, it's important to know all the options. Because what if there's a better way? A way to age with care, dignity, and fewer painful goodbyes. The truth is, most people overlook the alternatives. When most people think about elderly care, they picture nursing homes. It's the solution that seems most obvious, the place where seniors go when they can no longer live independently. But what if I told you that there are other options? Options that don't involve leaving your home, losing your independence, or saying goodbye to the life you've known for so long. One alternative I wish I had known about sooner is the option to stay at home with personalized care. For many, staying at home sounds impossible, especially if you're struggling with daily tasks. But there are services available that allow you to receive care right where you live. Personal caregivers can assist with meals, bathing, medication management, and even housekeeping. These services can be tailored to your needs and can grow or shrink as necessary, meaning you're not locked into a rigid schedule. You can choose how much assistance you need, and it can be adjusted as your condition changes. And the best part? You stay in your own space, your own bed, your own kitchen, your own garden. You stay in control. There's also the option of co-living arrangements for seniors. This modern alternative is gaining popularity, especially among people who don't want to live alone, but don't need full-time care. In a co-living situation, several seniors live together in a shared space, often with a caregiver on hand for assistance when needed. This option allows for community and companionship, while still giving each person their own privacy and autonomy. It's a more social, flexible solution that often comes with a lower cost than a traditional nursing home. And these aren't the only alternatives. Some people explore assisted living communities that offer more independence than nursing homes, but still provide assistance with daily activities. These communities focus on helping seniors maintain their autonomy, offering services like transportation, medication management, and housekeeping. But there's a key takeaway here. Not all nursing homes are the best fit for every senior. It's important to explore all the options before making a decision. Ask questions. Research alternative care options. Get to know the choices that will allow you to live the way you want. Because sometimes, the solution doesn't have to be leaving your home or losing your independence. If I had known about these alternatives earlier, I might have made a different choice. But now I want to help you avoid the same mistakes I made. You don't have to settle for what feels like the only option. The right care doesn't have to mean losing everything that makes life worth living. So take the time to research, to ask questions, and to find the right solution for you or your loved ones. Because aging doesn't have to feel like a loss. It can still be a time for living, for making the most of every day, no matter where you are. When we think about the elderly, we often focus on their physical needs, safety, comfort, and health. But what people often overlook is the emotional toll that comes with aging in a nursing home. The emotional impact of moving into a facility goes far beyond the initial shock of leaving your home. It's about the constant struggle with loneliness, identity, and a sense of purpose. It's about adjusting to a new reality where you're no longer the active, independent person you once were. And for many, that can be just as challenging, if not more so, than the physical adjustments. When you first arrive at a nursing home, it's not just your physical space that changes. It's your entire sense of self. Many seniors go through a profound identity crisis. They no longer see themselves as the individuals they once were, who worked hard, raised families, and contributed to society. Instead, they begin to feel like just another resident, a number on a roster, rather than someone with a life full of rich history and experience. I remember feeling this way when I first arrived. No longer did I feel like the father, the provider, or the active member of society. I had no clear role to fill, no tasks to accomplish. For the first time in my life, I felt completely insignificant, and it wasn't just me. Many of the residents I met shared similar feelings. There was an overwhelming sense of losing one's place in the world. I met a woman named Clara, who had spent her life as a teacher. For years, she shaped young minds and helped her community grow. Now she sat in the same spot every day, watching the same people come and go. She had no students to teach, no lessons to impart. Her role was gone. This lack of a clear role can be emotionally draining. It makes you question your purpose. For many, it feels like the world has passed them by, and they're left with little to contribute. This can lead to feelings of depression, anxiety, and a deep sense of loneliness. But it's not just the lack of purpose. It's also the constant reminder that your body is aging, and you're no longer able to do the things you once took for granted. Whether it's walking on your own, driving to the store, or taking care of yourself, every day serves as a reminder of what you've lost. I've witnessed the emotional toll this takes on many residents. I remember Henry, who loved to tell stories about his youth and his adventures around the world. But as his health declined, he began to shut down. He could no longer go out for walks, and his once vibrant stories turned into brief responses to simple questions. He no longer saw the point in sharing his life's experiences. The truth is, the emotional toll of aging in a nursing home can sometimes be more damaging than the physical challenges, and many people don't prepare for this. Another aspect of this emotional toll is the way people are treated within these institutions. Despite being told we'd be cared for, many residents feel like burdens. When you're in a place where everyone else is also in need of assistance, it's easy to feel as though you're taking up space rather than contributing to the community. This can lead to feelings of guilt and self-doubt. Even though the staff is there to help, their primary job is often to maintain order and efficiency, not to provide the emotional support we need. Yes, they take care of our physical needs, but emotional support isn't always prioritized. And after a lifetime of being independent, it's hard not to feel that you're bothering someone or being a nuisance when you ask for help. I learned quickly that one of the hardest things to deal with in a nursing home is the emotional neglect. You might be physically taken care of, but the isolation can be overwhelming. When your family visits less and less, and when staff are stretched too thin, you begin to feel like no one truly sees you anymore. And this emotional neglect isn't just about how you feel on a personal level. It affects your health. Studies have shown that loneliness and isolation can have significant physical consequences, including a weakened immune system, a higher risk of heart disease, and even shorter life expectancy. So the emotional toll isn't just something to brush aside, it has real health consequences. But despite the difficulties, there is a way to cope, even to thrive in a nursing home. The key lies in finding connection, whether through friendships with fellow residents, regular family visits, or a deeper engagement with the staff. It's about creating a new sense of purpose, even if it's in small everyday ways. Whether it's reading to other residents, participating in group activities, or simply sharing stories, these small actions can make a significant difference. But above all, it's about realizing that you are not defined by where you live or how independent you are. The emotional toll of aging is real, but you can still find joy, connection, and purpose, even in your later years. The nursing home environment can be difficult, but with the right mindset and support, you can still live a fulfilling life. The challenge is recognizing that this emotional journey is just as important to prepare for as the physical one. If you're considering moving into a nursing home or have elderly loved ones facing this decision, knowing these realities is essential. It's easy to assume that nursing homes are the solution to every challenge that comes with aging, but as I've shared today, the truth isn't as simple as it may seem. From losing your independence to the unpredictability of care and the unexpected emotional and financial toll, it's a lot to consider. But the most important thing to remember is that there are alternatives. Staying at home with personalized care, co-living with others, and exploring assisted living communities are all options that may better fit your needs and preferences. Aging doesn't have to mean losing everything that makes life worth living. You can maintain your independence, your connections, and your dignity, even as you face the challenges of getting older. If you or a loved one is considering a nursing home, I encourage you to take a step back and truly consider what's best for you. Research all your options, ask the tough questions, and think about the kind of life you want to live in your later years. This video might have made you think about aging in a new light. It might have even raised more questions than answers. But if it helped you make a more informed decision about what lies ahead, I've done my job. Have you or someone you know had an experience in a nursing home? What do you think is the best way to age with dignity? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your stories. If this video was helpful to you, please like and share it, so more people can become aware of these important truths. And if you want to learn more about how to age with health and happiness while avoiding common mistakes, watch this next video.